We've got a problem down at the area where they're logging right now. I'm gonna go investigate it. First though, I'm gonna start the truck because it's frozen solid from this last snowstorm we got. I had a feeling this was going to be an issue, but I didn't think it was going to be an issue until a lot later in the season. You see, the area that we're logging is pretty wet. The idea was that we would log it and then stump it and then build some drainage into it before the spring thaw really kind of kicked into high gear and things started melting and getting really wet. Here's the problem. That last snowstorm we got was really more like 3 or 4 inches of rain and like an inch or 2 of snow and ice. So now we run into a situation where all that water that we knew was going to be an issue, but we were preparing to kind of dig trenches and drain away, is now here. Well, not here, but here in the driveway. You can now see that we're dealing with the issue of all this runoff coming right over here into the driveway. You can see the tracks. Jackie got up earlier to go grab a grocery store pickup order, and you can see the trenches that she left. There is running water there. That's pretty deep. You can see over there there's skidder grapples frozen in pretty good, and it's all just kind of running off right pretty much directly in line from the house down to where I'm standing and then out into the driveway. Now the plan on all of this was to cut a trench from essentially the trees that you see behind me, kind of that horizontal maple that's laying on its side that was cut, and to cut a trench from there out to the rock wall where there's already kind of a natural stream that flows through there. It's a seasonal stream. It doesn't flow year round. It just flows in the spring during runoff season. The plan was to dig that trench, which would funnel all of this water during the spring melt off onto that side of the property, down along the rock wall, and we really wouldn't have to worry about it. Which is why we got these machines in here now during the winter when everything was frozen solid. What we didn't anticipate was the wonderful New England weather and the thaw that it brought upon us, where we had a couple days where it got up into the high 30s, low 40s even, and followed up by a whole bunch of rain, which just ended it essentially as far as the frozen ground goes. The ground is frozen now, but it's definitely soft. It's not really that firmed up. Now I'm wondering what it's looking like at the end of the driveway, because all this water's got to be going somewhere. Yeah, this is not good right now. This is me standing at the end of the driveway. It is, it's a flood the whole way down here. That's a little crazy. So obviously there are some advantages to having something like this occur when you've got heavy duty logging equipment on your property. The biggest of them being that logging skidders have blades on the front of them, and I don't think it'll be a big issue for him to come through and move some dirt around and essentially get the drainage routed back to where it's supposed to be going. What I'm actually going to do in the meantime is I'm going to take my truck and I'm going to run it up and down the driveway a few times just to help break up as much of this as possible. Get any water that's back here flowing out and help to drain it a little bit. Even though it is going to be running down the driveway, it's better than having it pool up and run all winter. The other thing I don't want to happen is I don't want the ruts that you see behind me to freeze in, because if they do, there's no way we're going to be able to get rid of them as the winter goes on. All right, let's get you guys set up so you can see what's going to happen here. This is probably the most redneck fix you'll ever see here on the channel for anything. Oh, just put the truck in four-wheel drive and blast through the ice to break it up. All right, I don't know if I just made it worse or if I made it better. The stuff that I kicked up is all super loose. It's like big ice crystals. There's a lot more water flowing out, so maybe it's gonna drain quicker. You know, the snow that's over there, or the water that's all over there right now, it might end up draining faster. But I definitely made the ruts a little bit worse. So I don't know, over the course of the next few days, I haven't looked at the weather. I think we're supposed to get more junky weather tomorrow. We're gonna get another little snowstorm / rainstorm blowing through. So this might have all been futile, and it might just be something where the guys that are doing the logging have to mess with it with the skidder. I guess with regard to the title of the video, so nobody can tell me I'm slinging clickbait over here, I don't think, oh look, Jackie and Emma are coming down. That a jackcident. I'm glad that my pain brings you so much joy.
Well, my first reaction was, are you okay?
No, it hurts.
You didn't break your elbow, did you?
I don't know. So, with regard to what I was saying before I so graciously fell on my back end.
On your side.
I hit right here.
Was your phone back there?
No.
Oh, good.
She doesn't care. So, with regard to what I was saying before and the title of this video, did we make a mistake in logging an area that we knew was as wet as it is? It doesn't qualify as wetlands. It's not listed as a wetlands, but it is just kind of a wet area because there's an area of runoff between our property and the next property over. I wouldn't go so far as to say it was a mistake. The moisture that we have coming through right now, the water that's running off, it is easily mitigated. It was already flowing through our property. What ended up happening though was just through the logging and the forestry, it looks like its path sort of shifted just by tracks that the skidder leaves behind and things like that. So it'll be easy to mitigate. It's not something that long term we're too worried about. If anything, it actually becomes a benefit because we can use that water to irrigate crops and things like that that are growing in this pasture area. There's loads of uses for having running water on your property, and even though this doesn't run year round, it's more or less just a spring runoff. It's not necessarily a bad thing to have, and with a few minor adjustments to the lay of the land, it'll be really easy to you know, have it not running down the driveway and creating a river.
The house looks pretty. It's gonna look a lot nicer once all those pines are gone.
So a couple different ways we'll be able to handle this. I think the most effective is actually going to be to cut drainage from right about where that chicken tractor is there, and cut it through those maples out to the rock wall over here. And what that'll do is that will take all the drainage that's coming in off the back of the property and put it along that rock wall where that stream is already kind of naturally running. We could also let it flow where it kind of is right now naturally, and then divert it back toward the rock wall this way. And that would actually be the easier thing to do because this is all already cleared, but then we were going to lose a good bit of the land that we're clearing to that drainage ditch. And you don't want to have a drainage ditch going right through the middle of your green pasture, because one, it's a pain to fence around, two, it creates an injury hazard for animals that are on the property. They could fall in it, they could drown in it, they could cause erosion around it. It's just not something you want to deal with, really. There is actually a skidder road that's behind me too. That's a really, really wet area. It's actually off to, if you're looking at it, the left of those maples that I was talking about. If we cut that drainage ditch in and move that water out, you can see over here behind me up against this rock wall there's already water standing, or not a standing water, but this is where that stream kind of runs. As spring gets closer, we'll actually be able to, we'll see this water better. Right now it's kind of hard to gauge because a lot of it's melt off, and it's really kind of hard to tell where all the water's coming from because it's running under snow. But as spring approaches, we'll be able to get a better look at this. We'll be able to see where water's coming from, see what areas are really wet, and then we'll be able to build our drainage effectively to mitigate all those problems. The biggest thing is that it's a marathon and not a sprint. While it would be nice to just all of a sudden, log it this winter and have awesome green pasture this spring, that's not how it goes. It's going to require a little bit of work and a little bit of effort put into it. And it'll be, probably 2 years before we have this whole area dialed in. So that's kind of what I'm thinking on this whole thing. If we can get the drainage to go from the stand of maples that we left behind me out toward the edge of the property, we'll be good to go. And that whole area down there, the driveway will stay dry. The pasture itself won't be too wet, and we won't have to worry about foot rot in any of the animals that we bring on, especially hoofed small ruminants like goats and sheep, if that happens, when that happens. Right now, obviously, we're dealing with kind of a tricky situation, but I don't think it's going to be that big of a deal in the future. All right, that's going to do it for today's video. Emma, you remember what we always say at the end of the video? Thanks for watching, and have a great day.
Bye. Bye.